Pace is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It is a Thursday. It's a gloomy, dreary, foggy, bleh, as the meteorologist John Nelson calls it, Thursday. It is not pleasant outside. We'll try to be pleasant inside with Soccer Down Here. If you guys have questions, you know where to find us. Twitter, @SoccerDownHere. Email, soccerdownhere@gmail.com. Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere. The Twitch pitch is freaking out this morning, John.
Oh?
Freaking out because...
Why are they freaking out, sir?
Because there's rumors, and this is what happens. We freak out about rumors. Somebody says something in some other country, and it's Kevin from Home Alone all over again.
Yes.
Things can happen. Things don't always happen in a straight line. It's not a straight narrative. It's not like... if A, then B. So, tranquilo, amigos. We'll wait and see how all this plays out. We'll talk about the rumors. Don't worry. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about ConcaChampions and the draw that was yesterday for the round of 16 in 2021. Atlanta United didn't get the easiest of draws. Alajuelense is 16 straight unbeaten in all competitions. They're a very strong side, and it will not be a simple match, and I don't know why anybody is trying to fight that and argue about it. It's kind of weird. It's the toughest opponent they faced in the round of 16. We'll get into it. We got to talk about Club World Cup as well. The final is today, and speaking of CONCACAF, you've got Tigres, led by Tuca Ferretti, in the final against Bayern Munich, who will be missing Thomas Mueller, who has somehow tested positive for COVID in a bubble. Why are you doing the weird hands thing?
It's just... it's like the question marks over my head. If I could have the question mark bubble, that's where that was coming from. It's like, how is this possible? But okay.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't understand it either. It's weird. It's very, very strange. So we will see where that goes. All kinds of stuff with MLS announcements as well. The season's going to start 2 weeks later. We talked about that on Stoppage Time yesterday. It's been hectic since we were with you last. We'll try to get caught up this morning. We'll take your questions as well. And tranquilo, por favor. Tranquilo. Relax. We do have an update out of Austin, Texas, as Austin FC continues to do the thing. Tomas Pochettino is now a member of Austin FC. This has been talked about for a little while. One of the best midfielders in Argentina last season with Tigres. Really good signing. A player who, every time I had a chance to watch Tigres, he jumped out at me. Very talented. He can play, as you're starting to learn, I think, kind of where the modern game is going. Central midfielders are not rigid in... he's a 6, he's an 8, he's a 10. He does not play any other number of the midfield. They can kind of do different things. We've talked about this with Sosa, with Ibarra. Pochettino's the same thing. He can play as a 10. I think he can play as an 8. Depends on how Josh Wolf wants to line this team up. Wolf coming from his time with Greg Berhalter, you can maybe try to make some correlations in the way he'll set up Austin. I think Pochettino will be an attacking central midfielder who will have some roles in defending as well. Really good signing. And again, I think Austin has done a very good job in building this team. And depth is going to be an issue, as it is normally in these situations. They've still got some work to do to flesh out the rest of the roster. But this is a good starting lineup that Austin has put together for year one. Back line, probably going to be Andrew Tarbell in goal. Ben Sweat, Matt Beasler, Julio Cascante, potentially Johan Romagna, young player from Paraguay. Nick Lima at right back. Sweat and Lima, good outside backs in this league. Central midfield with Alexander Ring. You've got Ulises Segura. You've got Diego Fagundes. Potentially Daniel Pereira, the Generation Adidas draftee that they had. Okay, Ring will hold things down. The part going forward, they got to be solid. But you've got Cecilio Dominguez. Now you've got Tomas Pochettino. You've got Danny Houston. You've got John Gallagher. You've got Kekuta Mane. You've got Rodney Redis. There are some players you can expect to do well, and there are some players that you're going to be looking at to step up. It's a good group. It's a good group. They've got more attacking quality than Nashville had. They've got more coherence than Miami had. Josh Wolf doesn't have experience. How does he manage year one with this team? That's going to be a big question mark, but Austin's going to be an interesting one to watch.
No doubt. And, seeing all of these names and seeing all of this, the build that has gone on so far, I'm looking forward to seeing how Austin comes out of the blocks. And I want to see how they continue as Josh Wolf gets his sea legs under him as coaching on all of this. I want to see how it progresses during the year, but I'm excited to see what it's going to look like out there on the field coming out of the blocks here this season.
Thomas Schwinn wants to know if he can play as a 23. He is a 47, actually. Maybe the 45 if he's not the 23. We'll see where it ends up. I know, like, the numbers thing, like, people now, I guess it's a thing that's not nice to say about trying to describe how a player plays. It's how the U.S. Soccer Federation does its coaching education, so it's not like, soccer people created it, just to be different. Like, it's a way you define the roles in the central midfield. The roles are blurring. It's just a way to try to give you a sense of what kind of player we're talking about here. I hope that isn't offensive. I hope I try to give you more context than just, he's a 6. Try to explain it a little bit. But anyway, man, people have been in their feelings lately, so got to be careful. Got to be careful with the terminology. Sometimes you say the wrong thing, and whoo, people get going. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of rumors on the Atlanta United front, and we'll jump into them right now. I mean, you've got the rumors from last night about Fernando Meza. You've got rumors about incoming. I've not seen an update on Martinez yet at River, but that was pretty much all but done according to reports yesterday. The incoming is Darwin Mateos, Venezuelan winger, 19 years old. Probably for the twos, or at least he would start with the twos, would be my guess. Don't know the details yet. There are reports from Mario Alberto Sanchez that he has already signed a deal. He's coming from Zamora FC. Stay tuned on that. Meza potentially on loan to San Lorenzo for a year. Don't know. People are freaking out, and I've seen the questions about, well, how can you get rid of this player and you don't have this player coming in? Because it doesn't always go in a straight line. Right now, you're looking at your first competitive game the week of April 6th. Is that right, with CONCACAF?
Yeah.
That's the Tuesday, I think. So between the 6th and the 8th, play the second one the next week in midweek, and then you've got your first league match. Okay. It is February 11th. There is time. You're not even in camp yet. There is time to get this sorted out. You had a deal done on Saturday with a very good center back out of Argentina. Look, that thing went crazy sideways, and there's nothing you can do about it, so you go to Plan B. Plan B for Atlanta United, and I think people who've paid attention from year one, and this is why I am yelling tranquilo, Plan B is not some unknown thing that's off in a closet in another building. Generally, Plan B, when these things have happened, is right there. It's ready to go. You just make the next call. You go to the next name on the list. You've already done your scouting. You've probably already had some conversations. That's what Atlanta United's done really well, is teams in the past in MLS were reluctant to move players on because they didn't have any idea of what they were going to do to replace them. Taylor Twellman did not get a chance to go to England because the New England Revolution did not want to give him up because they didn't know what they would do to replace him. That happened, 15 years ago or so. Even recently, you've seen teams be reluctant to do it. The New York Red Bulls with Aaron Long, I think it's going to end up hurting them in the long run, but they don't want to give him up. Sometimes you got to move the player on and know that you have a scouting department that you have invested in, know that you have relationships that you have invested in, know that you have a manager who has relationships that he has invested in, and know that you can make the move to do the right thing. If Fernando Meza is not the player that Gabriel Heinze wants, then you move on and you loan him out. If you can't sell him, you loan him out, you get him off your books, you get him off your roster so it doesn't hang over, the salary cap and any of that. And you bring in a player that the manager wants. You got to go get that player. You thought you had him. You honestly did have him for a minute, and River Plate came in, and look, River was able to get the deal done. Good on them. But you got to go get the next one. So don't freak out when things aren't done. That's the thing that I would continue to say tranquilo about. Just because there are things in progress, nothing's final yet. We're not even into training camp yet. So if this move happens first and then a player comes in after, or two players come in after, or whatever, cool. But you're going to have to move players on. Always. That's the game. You're going to have to be willing to do that where MLS is as a league, where Atlanta United is as a club. You've got to bring players in, sell them on for profit. This is going to be a bigger thing for Major League Soccer as a whole. When you're looking at a year of $1 billion of losses and another year where Don Garber says you're looking at that kind of number again, I think hopefully you won't get to that number because you'll have more people in the building all year long, even if it's not full yet. You're still going to lose money. How do you make up money? You don't make it up by going back to where you were with people in the building. You make it up with new revenue streams. MLS as a whole, Atlanta United's an outlier, but as a whole, MLS has not done a good job in selling players and making profit from it. You're going to have to now. You're going to have to do that. You're going to have to look for other revenue streams as well, but you're going to have to do that. So you're always going to have turnover. Look at the Argentine teams. You know, they have turnover all the time in their rosters. Look at the Brazilian teams. They have turnover all the time. The Mexican teams, turnover all the time. Even the Big Five in Europe. A lot of teams have a lot of turnover. What Liverpool has done over the last 3 years is not typical. And, by the way, it's hurting them this year. Because it's the same guys who have done the same things, who have won everything, and when times get tough, maybe they don't have the same motivation. Maybe they're not being pushed the way they need to do. It's why you bring new players in. That's why you move players out. That's why you freshen up the squad. What Liverpool's done is not typical. Manchester City brings in players. They move players on. PSG moves players on. They chop and change. Real Madrid, they moved players out. They didn't bring anybody in right now because of COVID. They're trying to keep those numbers right. Barcelona, I mean, throw player passes in the air and see what happens, and you're probably still going to have to pay somebody for those player passes. So, that's just Barcelona. But you see movement everywhere. You especially see movement in this hemisphere because you're trying to build in this hemisphere. So don't freak out about, they're moving another player. I'm frustrated. Nothing's done yet. The season's not even here yet. The window just opened officially. It runs through the beginning of May. You're 2 months away from a game. Tranquilo. Word of the day. It's all good. Wait till everything's done. Even before you get to camp, wait till what the camp roster looks like before freaking out. Wait and see. I agree with Byrne. Liverpool should have had more turnover. You need turnover, especially when you're in that situation, when you are a top team. Because what happens? Everybody does it. You're in a job. You're doing well. Everything is good. You're getting bonuses. It's all good. You hit a level where you kind of top out. What else was there for Liverpool to win? Nothing. There was nothing else to strive for. The reactions you saw when they won the title last year, that was like the end. It wasn't like, all right, we're going to kick on and do it again. It was, we finally did it. Yes. And then you have the challenges of this year, which are completely real. Injuries, COVID, schedule, all of it is completely real. You don't have the mental fortitude to push through it because you're not literally fat, but you're fat and happy. You're good. Life is good for Liverpool. It's not going to be good after this year, and things are going to change. They needed more turnover because you needed people who didn't experience that, who said, yeah, that was pretty cool what you did, Mo Salah, but I want to beat you out because I want to be that player. You can go sit down now. You need those guys to come in. So turnover's good. Players moving on is good. When you see managerial changes, you're going to see turnover. This is all part of the game. It's not something to freak out about, but it's definitely not when you're not even done with the cycle yet. Not even done with the off season to get to training camp yet. So, tranquilo. Let's see what happens. Let's see if Meza goes to San Lorenzo. Let's see if there's another player coming in There are plenty of players who fit the profile of what Martinez was going to bring to the table that you can go get. There are plenty of players that Gabriel Heinze will have in his orbit. There's lots of opportunities to get things done. You've got 2 months before you play a competitive game. Tranquilo.
Yeah, Tafka, with all of the loan talk and all of the rumors back and forth, was putting out a name into the conversations.
Let's bring name, because we mentioned him already.
Yeah.
Let's bring names into the fold. I mean, I can go and pull up a list of the best performers in Argentina, and that's where we came up with Luis Abram. He's a player from Vélez. He's a Peruvian international. He is the highest valued player who is a left-footed center back in Argentina right now in the top flight. Like, we can play that game. It doesn't mean he's a fit. It doesn't mean he's a player that Gabriel Heinze wants. It doesn't mean he's a player that the club can get. It doesn't mean anything. We can play the list game. And we can go play Football Manager, and we can play FIFA, and we can do that. Look, I have fun with that on FIFA. I have players that that are my favorites. If I start a new FIFA season, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go try to sign this guy. I'm going to go try to sign this guy. That's fun, but it's not real life. You know, could he fit? Sure, on paper he can. But just because we bring up a list of names, like, is there any realism to it? Because you could do the same in Brazil. You could do the same in Colombia. You could go to Mexico and get a left-footed center back. You could go to Europe and find a left-footed center back who a team would sell. Like, we can come up with a whole list. Let's see what happens. And let's see if they go for a left-footed center back as well. They might not. That might have just been a little bit of a coincidence with Martinez. It does make sense because Miles Robinson is better on the right side, in my opinion. So I get it. But we will see. It's Coco M says David Martinez has quickly become a FIFA manager career favorite for me. Yeah, absolutely. Agustin Urtzi from Bonfield was always my favorite. I'd go grab him. Short guy, great on the dribble, fast. He was always one of my favorites. So it's all good. It's all good. Tranquilo. Let's see. Abram would be a player who would fit. He's more expensive, so maybe he wouldn't fit because of that. But there's a whole list of guys. The Argentine League is very good, and there are almost every team in that league would take $3.5 million for one of their center backs tomorrow if you were able to give it to them, because most teams in that league need that cash coming in right now because they're in a worse position financially than MLS is. So the market is open for MLS and for Atlanta United to go get what they want at center back. So if Meza goes, I think the idea that you can't replace it is bunk. You know, there's plenty of time and money and players on a list to go get.
And Tafka also adds, well, you absolutely cannot say that Atlanta is afraid to move a player on.
No. Who said that?
No, it's just with the conversation, he's just saying, with the conversation about Liverpool, he's saying with Atlanta United as the comparison.
You got to. I mean, you won a title and you sold Miguel Almiron, and you knew that was going to happen when he came. You were going to get a couple of years out of him, and you were going to do what you could do. Pity Martinez last year, I mean, you could have held on to Pity, and you could have said, you know what, that's a really good offer, and we really like it, but we want to get into the playoffs. We're going to keep Pity Martinez. It wasn't the right deal to make. It wasn't the right thing to do for him, for the team. You know, you bring in that cash, you move on. You got to be willing to do the deal when the deal is there, and you can't always pick when the deal is there. You got to be willing to do it, and Atlanta United has been, because they look at it in the global sense of the game and not from an old school MLS perspective. That's changing. MLS is getting better with this stuff. But yeah, you got to be willing to sell when the time is right.
And Matt Wagner is a bit concerned from his perspective when Atlanta keeps trading or loaning out center backs and is only signing attacking players.
Well, they're not signing attacking players, first off. There is a rumor about a winger from Venezuela that he's not signed, first off. Sosa and Ibarra are not attacking players, second. And they're rumors. Again, nothing. It's you don't do deals in this way. You don't say, well, there's a rumor about Fernando Meza, so we've got to wait. We've got to do that. Put everything else to the side. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's not do anything else. Hey, guys who are doing rumors, you guys shut up for a minute. Now let's talk about center back rumors. Hey, go give me a center back rumor. Go plant that somewhere. Let's talk about that because the Meza one has come up. It's not how it works. So just because the rumors are flying off in different directions and in different orders doesn't mean it's done. And TM Tim actually brings up a good point. I love how lukewarm everyone seemed about Meza, and now everyone freaks out that he's leaving. That's absolutely true. I feel like I've been defending Fernando Meza for a year now, and now everybody's worried that he's going. It seemed like everybody wanted him to go. Let's see if he goes, first off. And I thought he started well. I thought he started really well early in the year. I was really hopeful for what he could be. Once he came back from COVID, it wasn't quite the same with him. It wasn't bad, I didn't think. I think those criticisms were harsh, but it wasn't as good as you hoped it would be. So if you think you can get better, you get better. You're always looking to get better if you're Atlanta United. So as solid as I think Fernando Meza is, he is a little bit older. If you can get better and younger, and the time is right, you do it. You take advantage. And again, the order of the rumors and the order of the moves might not follow a straight line, and that's okay. Again, you can't time out when people start making rumors. And you don't even, I mean, some of these, as we went through last year with Villasanti and Arzamendia, like, those were rumored hot and heavy, and they didn't happen. So rumors are rumors until they're done. And even then, the order doesn't always follow the straight line. So back to the word of the day, tranquilo.
And you mentioned Ibarra. Apparently, Ibarra is already listed as an Atlanta United player by Transfermarkt with a transfer fee of €2.5 million. For what it's worth.
What is it worth?
So it's like Transfermarkt put it there. It's like, okay, we've heard nothing, we've seen nothing, but now
no, we've heard. Like, no, we've heard. But here's my response.
Well, Lottie frickin' da!
It's a website that reports on things.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's good. By all accounts, he's going to sign and he's going to be here. It just hasn't been announced yet. It's all good. It doesn't mean anything. And as we say with Transfermarkt, it's evaluation. It's a good source. It gives you a good baseline, but it's evaluation. It's okay.
And folks have commented about the ConcaChampions Champions League draw on the timeline and a couple of other topics. Where would you like to go next, sir?
Do we have anything else on people freaking out? Do we need to not freak out anymore, or are we good?
No, we're good. That was why I said that everything else is about other things. We don't have to do any more warnings and trunquilos for the moment.
Okay, good. CONCACAF, the ConcaChampions. So the draw last night, it went pretty well for Atlanta United in totality. Mm-hmm. The part that was not what you hoped was you got Alajuelense. And Alajuelense and Saprissa are the two gigantes in Costa Rica. They're the two big boys. And, Atlanta United's seen Herediano in Costa Rica before, who was coming off of a CONCACAF league, and they're a step below Alajuelense and Saprissa in stature. Alajuelense is back with maybe their best team in a long time. They are 16 straight unbeaten. They won last night in league play. They've been playing consistently, so they will be kind of late in their season at that point, which could be good or bad. I mean, they could be tired. They could be, in complete fine form. They have a good mix of youth and veteran leadership. Veterans, Brian Ruiz, maybe the greatest player from Costa Rica on the field. Paulo Wanchope would argue that. Brian Ruiz, special player, a guy I always hoped would end up in MLS, never really fit right. He's 35, but in a series like this, he can still hurt you. Johan Venegas, who's played in MLS with Montreal, he is at Alajuelense, still playing significant roles. But you've got some young players, too, and a player that we talked about a month ago, Jurgens Montenegro. He is scoring goals. He scored last night. 20 years old. This is a big opportunity for him to get seen against a team that he was somehow linked to because he came to sign a new contract with his player agency. It happens. He is one of the top young talents out of Costa Rica right now. So you've got a Ruiz at 35 who can still hurt you. You've got a Montenegro at 20 who is trying to prove himself. And you've got a team that is very, very confident. It's going to be tough. It's the toughest draw Atlanta United's had in the round of 16. This is a better team than Motagua. This is a better team than Herediano in those seasons. Past that, you got what you want in the draw. Because in the past, we have seen, all right, Monterrey, Club America, they're looming past the round of 16. That's a little scary. It's Philadelphia and Saprissa who are looming past the round of 16. You can't look ahead because Alajuelense will absolutely beat you if you do. But you've got a quarterfinal opponent that's Philadelphia potentially. You know them well. And Saprissa, who Alajuelense has beaten recently. So you should feel better about that. It could be Club America in a semifinal. It could be the Portland Timbers. But that's an easier path. Percy says if it's the toughest draw, why did all the pundits say it was the easiest path? It's not the toughest because you could have got León. Let me make that clear. León, if I'm ranking the Pot B teams, León was number 1, Alajuelense was number 2. I would have went Saprissa 3 and Olympia 4. You could flip those. I don't know why other pundits were saying. The path past Alajuelense is easier. But you've got to respect Alajuelense. They're beatable. And I think this is something, I had some conversations with different people after the draw last night. There's this thing that I don't think we've been able to find with American soccer talk and MLS talk about balance. You know, it's not coming at it from an inferiority complex to say Alajuelense is a very good team and you've got to be careful. MLS and Atlanta United should win that match. They have more talent on paper. You can go to the transfer marked valuations as well if you want to. They have more talent. They should win that series. How many times do we see the team that should win that series not win? It happens. Seattle said the same thing about Olympia last year. We saw what happened. Anything can happen. A better team, and Alajuelense is better than Saprissa, better than Olympia, better than Marathon, better than Pantoja, better than Arcajay. Who did I forget? I think I got them all. Better than most of the teams in that pot.
Oh, Real Esteli.
Sorry, Nicaragua. It was better than Real Esteli. They are better than the other teams in that pot, with the exception of León. They can hurt you. You've got to play well in that series. Past that, the draw is manageable. Because if it's Philadelphia in a quarterfinal, you like your chances. If it's Saprissa and you've already went through Alajuelense, you like your chances. If it's Club America in a semi, it's a semi. Cool. If it's Portland in a semi, you know them. You've handled them. You're okay with them. You can be prepared for that. Okay. Then you're in a final. So the pathway as a whole is easier than it's been. Alajuelense is the second worst opponent you could have got out of that pot, in my opinion, outside of León, who is going to play the Canadian representative, either Toronto or Forge. So they got the toughest. I think Atlanta got the second toughest. Philadelphia and Saprissa is tricky, especially with Philadelphia incorporating new players. Their first time here for a lot of these guys. Columbus got a great draw with Real Esteli. Portland and Marathon, a little tricky, but Portland should be okay there. Club America and Olympia, to me, is a tricky matchup. I think Club America will be fine. I think by that stage, Santiago Solari will have everything going the way he wants, and they'll be fine. The idea about this balance thing that I think is important, you have to respect these Central American teams. You don't fear them because you've invested more. You have a roster that's worth more. You have players who have done more in their careers, typically. Not always, but typically. You have to respect them. You don't fear them. Those are two separate things. Those are not the same thing. So this idea that, okay, MLS should be afraid of an Alajuelense, no. But the idea that Atlanta United should not show any respect to Alajuelense and not even worry about Alajuelense, no. There is a middle path here. There is a path where it is hey, this is an underdog that can beat us if we are not doing our jobs well. This is an underdog that is a little scary. If we're talking about Real Esteli, we're having a different conversation. You look at the rosters, you compare the two. Just talked about Alajuelense's roster at the top end. Are they deep? No, not especially. But other teams in pot 2, they don't have a Brian Ruiz to rely on, who has been in Europe and has done big things in World Cups. They don't have that. Alajuelense does. So, they don't have a Jurgens Montenegro who's bursting onto the scene and scoring goals at 20 in the first division in Costa Rica. Alajuelense does. They won't be easy. You got to lock up Ruiz. You got to keep Montenegro from hurting you. You can't let them build into the game. Anytime when you're playing these kind of teams, you can't let them grow into games. I think Gabriel Heinze's system will be good for that because it'll make them uncomfortable from the opening minute. You make them question themselves. You don't let them gain in confidence. But if you don't follow the Costa Rican League, that's okay. That's fine. John watches Central America TV, which I know Xfinity has, Uverse had. I wish AT&T TV had it. They don't. There's some other ways to find Costa Rican games if you so choose. But if you don't follow it, that's okay. That doesn't mean it's not good. And it doesn't mean it's not worth talking about and respecting. Got to understand where things fit a little bit better rather than just dismissing things because it's not MLS or not Mexico. Mexican teams don't like getting Saprissa or Alajuelense in these draws. Club America doesn't like getting Olympia after what they did last year. There are teams that you can say, oh, okay, that's a little different than your average Central American team who qualifies here. Oh, that's okay. A little trickier than we thought. We're good. We're confident. But yeah, we respect who we're going to face. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the two halves, and I think that if you look at the other half with Cruz Azul, Arca High, the
Cruz
Canadian
Azul
winner
should coast there, no problem.
Yeah. The Canadian winner in Leon, I think that one's going to be a fun one.
Well, if it's Toronto and Leon. If it's Forge and Leon, Forge gets blown out of the water.
Yeah, but if it's Toronto SC and Leon, I think that one will be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Monterrey should have no problem with Atletico Pantoja.
That Monterrey will roll. Red Bulls went over them 5-0 in 2019, and Red Bulls in 2019 is not Monterrey now.
Yeah. And then, obviously, Crew, we're anticipating no problems with Real Esteli. So I think that on the other side, it's the second round, or the round of 8, where a lot of folks are looking, where on the side that Atlanta United's on, it's a lot of matchups that are tricky and you cannot take for granted because of that whole group of 8. Because Saprissa and Philly, we've talked about Atlanta United and Alajuelense, Club America and Olympia, and Portland and Marathon. It's two separate ways of going about it, but it's like the whole group on the Atlanta United side it can have its moments where if you stumble and the team from the B side can come and beat you, where on the other side it's the anticipation of those second round matchups short of the idea of a Toronto SC and Leon.
Yeah, the other half of the bracket is more chalk in the first round, in the round of 16. On the Atlanta United half of it, it's more challenging. But there's also a much greater likelihood that an MLS team gets to the final out of that. You do have to keep an eye on Club America and what they're doing under Solari, but they're not there yet. They're not hitting on all cylinders just yet. Question from Abby about when training camps will start and if the teams in CONCACAF will get to start a little bit earlier. Don Garber alluded to that, and I thought didn't confirm it because I don't think he can yet, but that's typically how it's gone. I thought he pretty heavily alluded to it. So I would expect that Atlanta, Portland, Columbus, Toronto's a weird situation. They've got to get this Canadian Championship game scheduled, and I don't know what that's looking like right now. You have all the Canadian sources. What are they saying?
They still don't know.
That's
they're still trying to figure out the wins and WHEN apostrophe S, but they're still trying to come up with a date.
Yeah, Stephen Goff just tweeted that MLS and the MLSPA continue to work on official dates to open training camps. 6 weeks is the typically mandated buildup, and that's mandated by the CBA. And people complain about it, and I understand it. You'd love to start training earlier. You'd love to start training today, tomorrow, whenever. You got to do a quarantine period first, and you got to work through that. But the CBA has mandatory dates for when it starts, mandatory time off. You can only have a certain amount of time in a training camp. So that's what the players have negotiated for. That's what they wanted. So if March 6th is the 6 weeks from April 17th, do you get the teams in CONCACAF starting closer to what was the original date of the 22nd? Because they're going to be playing on April 6th, 7th, or 8th. I don't know. It should be. That would make sense. and hopefully they get that done. That would help a lot. And it would help Atlanta, especially. It would help Philadelphia a lot because they're going to have, not a completely new team, but they got to replace McKenzie. They got to replace Brendan Aronson, who did score, by the way, for Red Bull Salzburg yesterday. Really nice goal if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. Jake Michaels is in this morning about Atlanta United and the loan deals specifically instead of selling players. He says, what's in it for Atlanta? It seems risky unless there are obligations to buy that are inserted into the loan deals.
There's no risk. I mean, if the player's not part of your plans, then there's no risk to loaning them out. You got to get the loan deals to be at a point where it's covering salary and then they're not on your cap and not on your roster. If it's a loan deal where they're not covering the whole salary, it can get tricky in terms of the salary cap and roster space. And I don't have all the parameters of that. It's kind of a case-by-case basis, it seems like. So there's not really risk. The biggest thing is the market right now, and especially with the teams that we're talking about. If it's Newell's Old Boys, they don't have a ton of money to make a deal at the moment. If it's Independiente, they don't have a ton of money to make a deal for Eric Remedi at the moment. If it's San Lorenzo, same thing. These are teams who are going into South American play, want to bolster their side, but they don't have a big transfer budget to go out and do it. So they're going to be looking for loan deals. We saw it in Europe. We saw a ton of loan deals in Europe during the January window. I think it's common right now as teams don't have a lot of money to spend, but are hopeful that they will in future windows. So that's why you're seeing these loans, sometimes with an obligation to buy, but oftentimes with an option to buy.
There were only 5 player purchases in the transfer window in the Premier League. And I think one of them had happened pre-window, and it took up, I think, close to 40% of the overall value. So you only had 5 transactions of that variety in the Prem in the January window.
Not bad, not bad at all.
Nathan Pugh says, "Down with the Costa Ricans. I don't care how good they are. We're better. Dream big, and let's advance into these stripes." Hashtag Thursday Truths.
Yes, you can be that person. But you don't be that person by saying some of the things that people have been saying about Alajuelense.
Right.
You can be confident about your side because you should be. You don't disrespect a team with decades and decades of history. You don't disrespect a country who has done some really good things in this game. Outside of the U.S. and Mexico, Costa Rica is the one in CONCACAF that has done the most. 2014. They went further than the United States. They went further than Mexico. 2018, they were at the World Cup. Yeah. So it's you can be confident without being disrespectful. The disrespect has been frustrating with some of the things lately, whether it's talking about potential transfers to Argentine clubs, whether it's talking about CONCACAF. That's the beauty of this stuff to me. That's why I'm wearing an Herediano hat, because I didn't know Herediano all that well until we interacted with them. And they were great to us. And it's not just because they were nice to us and helped us get a broadcast out of their wonderful little stadium. It's because that's the game. You get to learn about some of these other clubs and other places and see that it's not just about you. It's not just about your league. It's about others. I mean, that's the beauty of the European competition as well. When, I think, it was probably about 10, 12 years ago, Manchester United lost to Basel. And Basel wasn't a team that I knew well. I mean, I knew where they were, but I didn't know the club. And you learn about the club, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. This is not just a small little nothing team that's brand new. Like they've got a history. This is a big accomplishment for them. This is a big deal. Yeah, they've got talent. You learn about the game because it's a global game. Don't disrespect teams you don't know. If you're doing the banter thing, fine, like have fun with it, I guess, but don't be disrespectful. Like it comes off as very ugly American vibe.
Yeah,
let's not do that. Like learn about it. If you don't know Alajuelense, that's fine. Look it up. It's not that hard. I mean, it took like 3 clicks because I had a little bit on all the teams that Atlanta United could draw. It took 3 clicks to have the basics of what have they done in their last 15 games. Who are the key players? Who scored the most goals this season? The basics. That's good. It's good to do these things. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I like to learn things, so I like when we see new teams. I like when we get to learn about leagues that we don't follow on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, and I mean, for me, it has evolved with getting to watch Central American television and Nuestra Tele and watching the Colombian games and watching games in El Salvador and watching games in Costa Rica because of the possibilities of these teams that finish in the top of these leagues being a part of CONCACAF Champions League, which is where Atlanta United has been active. And so it's advanced scouting for me in a way to understand the game, to look at the flavor of the game, because I mean there are teams in the Costa Rican league, and this is just stuff that I've discovered in watching them over time, where it's very old stadia, and they have trees that are growing inside the stadium that have gone through the stands, and they're right there, shade trees right there at midfield on the supporters' side. And then they have other shade trees in corners, and it's just the flavor that you get to learn about all of this stuff. And then you sit there and say, yeah, I saw them in their league, and they're in CONCACAF Champions League now. So it's all part for me. It's all about being educated about who is going to be in things that Atlanta United are a part of too.
It's all about loving the game. I mean, it was just a few weeks ago that Jurgens Montenegro was linked to Atlanta United, and people were excited. You know, this is a player that you're going to be seeing in this competition. It's a love for the game. Like, you hope that you find, how many times do we see this kind of stuff where you play somebody in one of these competitions, and you're like, ooh, go sign that player. Like Milan with Hauga. You know, I think Montreal brought in players that they played against in CONCACAF in recent years. You learn. The game's global, and there's wonderful clubs with rich histories all over the world. Atlanta United is going into year 5. People have an impression of MLS and an impression of Atlanta United, but it's very short. So just don't disrespect clubs with decades of history and teams with decades of history because you don't know them. Don't come from ignorance. Again, if you're doing the banter thing, fine, have fun, but kind of maybe make it clear that you're doing the banter thing and not just be disrespectful. I don't know. Like, I've followed this, and this is my life, and we all are made by our interactions and who we know and what we live, right? You know, we all are a product of our experiences. And I was lucky to work with Ricardo Montoya at Soccer in the Streets for a number of years from Costa Rica, played professionally in Costa Rica, in Mexico, and Guatemala, is now managing in the El Salvador First Division. So, I learned really quickly about Saprissa and Alajuelense because Ricardo was a Saprissa fan, and his wife was an Alajuelense fan, and you think Alabama-Auburn is a big deal. Oof, that's up there. It's a big deal. So I got to know these things. He had a chance to do scouting for Houston Dynamo and Dominic Kinnear through some connections he had when they were playing Punta Arenas, which was a club in the First Division in Costa Rica who was in CONCACAF. And I helped him put the scouting report together, and I was learning about how to look at teams and how to, analyze like trends and the way they play and what they do a lot of and things like that. So I've had these experiences to watch Costa Rican teams, maybe more than others have who are gringos. And that's fine. That's just me. That's just what I've had. But please, like where you're going to see these teams, get to know them a little bit. There's some really amazing stories, some really cool stories. And you're going to see some of these players make their way into MLS. It's better to understand who Jurgens Montenegro is and who some of these other guys are and respect them and respect the clubs they're coming from, because you might be doing business with them if you're an MLS club very, very soon, if you haven't already. So I don't know. It's a weird thing. I look at these opportunities as an opportunity to grow. I look at it as an opportunity to learn more about a team that I haven't seen a ton. Cool. I want to get to know them. I want to see how Atlanta can beat them. I want to see how they can beat Atlanta. I want to know what the storyline's going into the game. I don't want to just put up a front and say, Atlanta's better. Raw. We got to do more than that. We can add more to the discourse, and we're going to try to. Twitch pitch. I'm going to hit up some things on there before we jump in. We're getting close to the top of the hour where John has his one shining moment. We'll see how it goes today.
One shining moment.
I didn't want you to sing it. We'll see how it goes today. Yesterday was a decent day on the scorecards. We'll see how today looks. Right. Thomas DeWin says, I'll be surprised if some of the CCL teams aren't allowed to start at some point in February. I'll agree. I think if it's 6 weeks from April 17th for everybody else, I think you're going to get at least another week for the CONCACAF teams. That's typically what they've done in the past. That would be okay. The quarantine issue is the only thing that I'm like, okay, can you get the quarantine period separate from the actual time on the field? Can you have that earlier? Are you going to be able to do that because of the terms of the CBA? You want as much time on the field as possible. Five Stripe Stunner says, when does commentator team preseason start? Any adjustments to how you prepare here on year 4? Year 5, actually. Five Stripe Stunner. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I think I adjust every year with what I do. Like I get deeper into it every year because I'm not doing the basics. You know, like going behind the curtain. I mean, the basics for me when I'm preparing for games is I do Google Docs. I go through basic bios on all the players that I have on my Google Doc. I go through the recent trends about the team, recent performances, stats, et cetera, et cetera. So those basic bios on players, I mean, I've got now 4 seasons of them. And I don't have to go and do research on every player in the league again. So I can go a little bit deeper. I've been consistently building the depth charts for all the teams in the league as new signings happen and having information about what teams might need, talking about it from a transfer situation, but also looking at what potential lineups could start to look like. This season, what's been different, and it was the same in 2019 or going into 2019, is getting to know a new manager and studying and working at it. I was able to find a book that was written in Argentina about Gabriel Heinze, Modelo Heinze. It's about his model of play, and it's in Spanish. And as you know, I am not a native Spanish speaker, and I'm not a very good Spanish speaker. But I'm working through it in terms of translating, and I'm reading it to try to get better with pronunciation and get more comfortable with it. And I'm trying to learn a lot of the ins and outs of how people saw his teams at Vélez and at Argentinos. So I'm trying to get a better sense of that. I'm reading, I'm watching videos, I'm looking at what his touchstones do. I'm always refreshing that. Like I've always been fascinated with the way Pep Guardiola sees the game. I see a lot of Pep in the way that Gabriel Heinze sees the game, so I'm looking at that. Looking at Bielsa, obviously. I'm looking at Luis Enrique, who is another one that Gabriel Heinze has talked about. He played for him. That he's talked about as a touchstone. So I'm looking at all those guys, and I'm trying to get in my head where I see Atlanta looking on the field with Gabriel Heinze leading everything. So that's kind of where my head is, but it's not like it just started. It's not like it started a week ago. I mean, honestly, a week or so after the season, I was already thinking in that direction and starting the depth chart thing. And then when Heinze was announced, I started going deep into studying on him and just layering it and just adding more and more and more. Hopefully we'll get a chance to call some preseason games. I know that's the intention. I know that's the plan. It's going to be a preseason like we haven't seen because of COVID and just how it goes. So I don't know any details at all yet. But hopefully we'll have some games streamed and get to call those because you want reps. It's hard to just jump back in and do a broadcast without having done one in a long time. So those are the things. I mean, that's what it looks like for me. So I want to know as much as possible because you never know what will happen in a game. You never know what moves could happen. I want to have as much information as possible about Alawalense. I want to have as much information as possible about the new players. I want to have as much information as possible about trying to get inside of Gabriel Heinze's brain. So if there's an injury, what does he do? If this isn't working, how does he adjust? If a team is high pressing and making it difficult to build up out of the back, what do? What's the solution? I want to understand those things so when they happen, it's not a surprise to me, and I'm ready to explain it.
Yeah, and I mean that's you're keeping an eye on things pretty much all season long, and then you're adding to notes, and usually the dossier ends up being pretty thick that you can file through, and it just gets to be easy stuff that you can pull. But it's always a process that you're building upon. It's not just that something that it's like, oh, the season's here, then you build on it. But it's just big notebooks that you fill all the way through.
No. These are the wonderful things about digital, John. There's no notebooks. There's no thickness.
Oh, okay.
That's what's so great about a Google Doc, for example.
Okay.
Type. It can add 50 pages, and it's not thick. I know, you've got a million legal pads, and you look at half of them.
Yes.
And none of them had anything to do with how to be a bookie.
True. That is accurate, although I do have the reformed numbers, though, for next week.
Yeah. Well, you've got time because we didn't make picks this week. We will be making picks on Monday on soccer over there, and maybe the week after when we come back and review it, we'll have a correct scoring update. Possibly.
You're optimistic.
I hope you learn, just like the rest of us, John. It's Coco M says, I think it was last night we heard Carlos talk about Atlanta looking at 9 or 10 preseason matches. Would most of those be with the regional teams, especially the USL guys? I mean, my guess is you're going to have to do a lot of regional stuff because I don't know if you're going to – I don't think you're going to travel internationally. I just don't even know what challenges that would entail right now. So, you're not going to want to play like a bunch of teams with a lot of travel. You're going to want to make it really smart and COVID safe. So I think you're looking at Tormenta, Birmingham, Red Wolves, potentially Chattanooga FC, Greenville Triumph, Charlotte Independence, maybe Charleston, maybe Nashville. You're looking at teams like that. I think you're also looking at college teams because a lot of them are playing in the spring and playing a more competitive season than normal in the spring. You've got a lot of ACC teams nearby. You've got Georgia State. You've got Mercer. You've got a lot of programs in the area that you can get a game with. You need a variety of opponents because you need to be able to test things out. Because you're going to be learning not a brand new way of playing, but different elements of the way you're playing. So you're going to want some games that are a little easier. You're going to want some games that are difficult. But I think you're going to be limited by the geography and just by COVID in general. So if you can get 9 to 10 in a preseason, that's really good. Because I thought we saw a difference last year, 2019 versus 2020, in terms of preparation. You saw more games. That was a learning process to be ready for CONCACAF. The team looked better in that series with Motagua than they did in the series earlier against Herediano in 19. They played more games going into 20, and you're going to need that. So you need the training sessions. You need the training to be difficult and intense, but you need the games to show that the training sessions are making sense and you're seeing progress.
And at the same time, the more teams you play who can come at the game differently, you can apply what you're learning in these different situations against these teams who have their way and their perception of playing too, and it just gives you a bunch of different things that you can play off of.
Yeah. WC Core says, "Are we playing the home leg at the Fraction or at the Benz?" I don't know. I have no way to know that. I don't know what's going on at the Benz right now. We're in a different part of the year, but I don't know what their calendar looks like. So I honestly have no idea. If it's not at the Benz, it would be at the Fraction, I would assume. But I don't know. GH asked about doing preseason in high elevation places like Mexico City. You don't have the elevation issues with Costa Rica, so you don't have to worry about that. But would you want to do it for fitness reasons? Maybe in a normal year. I just don't think you can pull it off this year. I think you're going to be looking to bunker down and train locally as much as possible. Let's see. Clayton says, do you think these teams see us as best case draw due to our last 15? If you're Alajuelense, I think you'd rather see Atlanta than Columbus because Columbus is the defending champ. Portland, maybe not. Philadelphia, maybe not because of who they've lost. I think you probably would have rather seen Toronto than Atlanta based off, having a new coach and I think just a different look at them, and they're not going to be at home and just how challenging it'll be. Atlanta's a weird one, Clayton, just because in Central America they are a known quantity. this is your third year in CONCACAF. They're known and they're respected. I mean, I got that sense immediately at Herediano was that they were respected very quickly. Atlanta United was. So maybe Columbus doesn't have that amount of institutional respect, but they're going to have the respect as being the defending champs. So Alajuelense is not looking at this as an unwinnable series at all.
Yeah,
the Costa Rican media was not looking at this as, this is, forget it, we're screwed. They're not looking at it like if they had drawn Club America, because Atlanta's coming in a weaker place. So yeah, I mean this is winnable for Alajuelense in their minds, and it should be. It should be because they're a good team and they're in a really good form right now. Will they maintain that for 2 more months? We'll have to see. But yeah, they are not afraid at all right now. Go ahead.
I looked at the schedule with the run that Alajuelense is on, and there are a couple of matches in the next little bit against teams in the upper half of the table that could threaten this run that they're on. But if they get through that, there's this group of matches leading right into CONCACAF Champions League where it's against teams at the bottom of the table. And half of the teams right now currently in the Costa Rican League have only 1 win. And they're 7 games into their clausura, but half of the teams have only won once. And as you get closer to Champions League, Alajuelense has an opportunity to go up against the teams that are 11th and 12th to get into Champions League with matchups like that are winnable.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how it builds up on the Costa Rican media side. I really will. But I don't think they're afraid, and I don't think they should be. I really don't. Little bit of news on the Tomas Pochettino move to Austin. It's being reported by Cesar Luis Merlo and a couple others out of Argentina that it is a $2.5 million deal for 100% of the pass, and he's signing a 4-year contract. 25 years old, had a great season. Golazo Argentino, which is a great resource for everything there. They have a great preview of the upcoming Argentine Cup competition. They said it's an amazing deal. Cannot stress how much of a good deal this is. Incredible value, all caps. Just turned 25, one of the best players in Argentina last season, really good passer, can score goals from distance, but also arrives in the box, hardworking, and at that price, just fantastic. I thought it'd be more than 2.5 based off what I saw of him last year. If that number's accurate and it's being reported in multiple places, that's a really good piece of business by Austin to get Tomas Pochettino for that kind of number.
No doubt.
All right. We got caught up just a little bit on the Twitch pitch. I'm with Perfect Tommy. I like watching the Ecuadorian League because Nino Torres is awesome on Goal TV. He is hilarious. And El Mataflow has gotten me hooked because I've learned a little more about it.
Yeah.
We've talked about it here. It's like, okay, I know this team. I don't really like that team. I like this team. Cool. Like, it's fun. Like, I'm weird. I know. I'm not just going to watch every Premier League game because it's the Premier League. I'm probably going to go watch an Uruguayan game or an Ecuadorian game. I'm definitely going to watch the Argentine games. It's just how I click. I don't know. I'm strange. It's all good. I'm used to it. I've accepted it by now. John, have you accepted being strange?
Oh, I did that a long time ago. You ought to know that about me by now.
I'm just making sure. It's good because sometimes your reads are a little strange.
Well, true. And the question that came out this morning from Patrick Sullivan before the show started, he wanted to know if I was upright this morning after chugging my funky-flavored PEDs.
He didn't chug it because John wussed out, basically. He couldn't do it.
No. I mean, it was first and foremost the sugar content in that drink. Good Lord. The recommended daily allowance at 176%. But no, like I said, it started out as a watermelon Jolly Rancher. Then the more that you had, the more you got an aftertaste, and it tasted like a tin can. And it was just after I was done with it on the show and on the Twitch pitch, I was done with it. I weep for my plumber because it went right down the drain.
I think it'll be okay. I'm glad you kept going after your weep for the plumber thing. That could have really gone sideways.
Poured it right down the drain.
All right. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, hit it.
John is now going to tell us about our good friend, Steve Apolinsky.
Appolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here and the SDH network. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's only one place that you need to have your conversations, and it is with said firm, Appolinsky and Associates, LLC. A couple different ways that you can have that conversation. You can shoot Steve an email directly at steve@aa-legal.com. You can dial him up and get a free consultation at 404-377-9191, or the third way that you can do it is by going on the World Wide Web. Large device or small. Type in aa-legal.com, hit the enter key, the return key, the arrow key, whatever advances it to the homepage where they have a lot of basic information about Appolinsky and Associates, LLC. But if you need more specific info, there's a pop-up window that pops up, low right-hand corner, because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up, and you can have your questions answered 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison, for always reminding us of that. Recognized legally by Georgia Trend Magazine, being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million of judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's only one place you need to go. It's Appolinsky and Associates, LLC, and the website is aa-legal.com.
Okay, you didn't undercut yourself at the end. Oh, you proud of that one? Wow.
I hit it.
That's the first time I've actually seen John happy with his read.
I hit it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was vibing, Coco. I was definitely vibing on that. If we're going to see bands that, we could snap our fingers and get to see a band, I want to see the band who did that music, because that was a nice groove. All right, you got a minus 0.5 on the stumble on Chris Hutchison. That's true. You got a 6. You got a 5. Strong 9.3, a 9, a 6.9, a 10, a 10. That's wow.
Mateo gave me a 10, by the way.
Wow, a 9 out of 5, or a 9.5. Matt Wagner. I'm not sure, because that doesn't make any sense.
So a 9 out of 5 would basically be like an 18 out of 10.
I don't think it was that good.
I don't either.
An 8 because of the confidence at the end. A 2 because Ragamuffin is East German today. A 9.1, an 8, a 9.9, a 9.5, an 8.0124. DM Tim wants to change the background music to the CONCACAF draw background music, which that was.
But then we'd all fall asleep.
That's true. 6.7, a 7. 7.93. Thomas Jewin, I don't know what this falls to. He says, honestly, I was tempted to say 10 for the confidence at the end. The fist pumps almost got him back. Got him the 0.5 back that he lost for the slight stumble. So I think Thomas Jewin is still considering maybe giving you a 10.
Well, I think that it's a 9.5 unless he upgrades.
8.965, 6.875. It felt a little tired.
Well, it was, but hopefully I played through it.
8, the stumbles didn't stop you. It kept the show rolling. A 9.3 final ruling from Thomas Jewin. You lost another 0.2 somewhere in the mix.
Technical merit.
And we have a BR549 out of Chiefs coach Steve.
Understood. Yeah, that's a good junior samples reference this morning.
Do you guys want to explain that for people who might be a little younger?
Hee-Haw had a segment with...
Wow, it went hee-haw on us. I did not see hee-haw come in this morning.
Yeah, Junior Samples. Junior Samples was one of the cast members for Hee-Haw, and part of his skits dealt with a used car dealership, and the telephone number was BR549. That was the phone. That was the phone number. So that was the extension. So that was where that came from. I know that there's a band and a musical reference that came from that for the younger demos, that's where it came from. But the original reference is from Hee-Haw.
Alrighty then. Alrighty. It's been a long
time
since I've seen Hee-Haw. Wow.
I haven't seen Hee-Haw in 40 years, but that's just what sticks in your head when there's a gentleman who has a rather large piece of cardboard that has BR549 on it. And when you're an impressionable young man, you sit there and you remember things like that.
Wow. Okay. All right. Good times. We always like to learn on soccer down here. We like to learn about things that we don't know, or maybe we weren't alive for, or maybe we blocked out of our memories at different points.
We weren't alive for or blocked out of our minds. I think it's those last two.
Just saying. All right. We got stuff. You've got the Club World Cup going on right now. You've got Al Ahly and Palmeiras playing. And Johannes asked, is it okay to root for Al Ahly against Palmeiras? I would possibly... Well, do I want to go here? I'm going to go here.
I was going to say, dude, why
I'm going here. I would root for Orlando City over Palmeiras right now. Palmeiras is an abomination on the game with what I've seen from them in their last few games. I would root for anybody against Palmeiras at the moment. Go Al Ahly, beat Palmeiras into the ground, and maybe kick Felipe Melo a couple times while you're at it. God, Palmeiras has driven me crazy. That Libertadores final. I'm still angry about it.
Okay, so here's your juice boxes for it. Going into the match, Palmeiras was a minus 147 in the composite. Al Ahly was a plus 442, and your draw is a plus 275.
No, I would not have thrown any juice boxes at it. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. But in terms of rooting interest, yes, I will not root for Palmeiras in anything. I'm still very angry with them.
Understandable.
Very, very angry with Palmeiras after that Libertadores final. That was very, very sad to watch. Let's get into the bigger game, though, later today. It is a 1 o'clock kickoff. It is on FS1. They've moved up. And Fox Deportes, Tigres, and Bayern Munich. The final is at Al Rayyan, a host venue for the 2022 World Cup. Tigres is the 16th team in the history of Mexican football to play in a decisive game. There's only 3 clubs that have won in a decisive international final. Club America was the first. They beat Boca Juniors in the Copa Interamericana, which, man, I would love to see come back. CONMEBOL shelved it when DC United won it in 1998. I said, no, we're not doing this again. DC beat Vasco da Gama, and they shelved it, so they haven't done it since 98. It was essentially the CONCACAF Champions Cup winner at that time against the Copa Libertadores winner. Let's bring it back. If that's the step in the right direction to get to if that's the step in the right direction to get into MLS teams and Copa Libertadores and Sudamericana, cool, let's do the Interamericana. Pumas won the Copa Interamericana. They beat Nacional in 1981. 91, Club America won it again. They beat Olimpia from Paraguay. Pachuca has the biggest international trophy in Mexico. They won the Copa Sudamericana when Mexican teams were participating. They beat Colo-Colo in that. Tigres did get to a Copa Libertadores final in 2015, and they lost to River in a 2-leg final. They lost 3-0 on aggregate. That was the last time. They had been so close in CONCACAF over the years with this group. It really feels like the last run. It is the last hurrah for this group because they're older. I mean, Gignac is reportedly out of contract in the summer. You've got other older players in this team. They had just been so close. It felt like they weren't going to get the opportunity to do this. They did. They get to the final. They've done something no CONCACAF team has ever done in the Club World Cup. This is a huge day. A loss is not going to diminish what Tigres has done. But yeah, this is a very, very big deal. And they have an opportunity here. You know, they're not hopeless in this game at all. No Thomas Müller for Bayern Munich. He has tested positive somehow in a bubble in Qatar. He has tested positive. But there's respect for Tigres from the Bayern Munich side. And Gignac's a big reason for that because he's a known quantity. Manuel Neuer said, I have bad memories when facing Gignac with the national team when he was in Europe. It goes without saying. We need to keep pace. We need to put pressure on the opponent. We need to be very quick. Because of Gignac, Tigres has a little more respect in this. What are the numbers on it? I'm really curious to see what the bookies have done here.
All right. So we'll start with the draw. The draw is at plus 585. Bayern, minus 455. Tigres, plus 1215.
It's a little bit higher than I would have thought, but not like massively different. It should be Bayern. I mean, it's, again, just like we talked about with Atlanta and Alajuelense. You look at the teams. it should easily be Bayern here in terms of quality. Game's not played on paper. Bayern will have to be at their best to handle this. In Tigres, you've got a veteran team. You've got a veteran manager. They're not going to be, trying to take selfies during the game. They're not going to be talking about swapping shirts during the game. They know what they're there to do. They're not in over their heads. But they're not as good as Bayern Munich. Yeah. That's the fact. Now, what helps them is they are comfortable sitting and defending and playing on the counter because you're going to be forced to sit and defend against Bayern. Being on the counter is good for them. They'll get some counter opportunities against Bayern because Bayern plays an incredibly high line. Gignac can punish them, 100%. He can punish them. If they get caught, as we've seen Bayern do here over the last month or so, he can put the ball in the back of the net and punish Bayern. I think there will be goals here because I think Bayern will do what they do, play a very high line, take their chances. Tigres will get something. I don't think they get enough because Bayern is too strong. I see a 4-2. I think it's going to be a wild one. I want CONCACAF to win this. I want Tigres to win it. I don't have any ill will towards Tigres. I like what Tuca Ferretti has done in his career. He's one of the greats in Mexico. I'd love to see him get this. I'd love to see CONCACAF get this. They shouldn't, based on quality. And Bayern, where they had been a little slippery, and they were even a little slippery against Al-Ahly. I mean, they didn't look great in that game. They got it done. They've got to be better against Tigres. If they come in overconfident, they will lose. I don't think they will. I think they get it done. I think it's a kind of wild game with a lot of opportunities, and it's 4-2 Bayern. That is my pick.
All right. So here's your totals. Over-under at 3.5 is plus 138. Over-under 4.5 is plus 305. Over-under 5.5 plus 620. Over-under 6.5 plus 1,500.
If I'm throwing a wild juice box at this game, I'm going to throw it at the wild over rather than the wild Tigres win.
Right.
I think that's more likely. I'm hopeful it's a good game. I'm hopeful Tigres shows well. I'd love to see them win it. I know there are some Bayern fans, looking at you, Johannes, who would not like to see Tigres win. I totally understand that. I think if you're a neutral here, unless maybe you're a Monterrey fan, you are kind of hoping Tigres pulls the upset because we all like to see the upsets. I don't think they will. Byrne says the difference is the depth. Muller's out. Lirosane is out. Boateng is out. Suele is in. He's the German national team starter. It's not Bayern at 100% full strength, but they still have enough quality to get this done, in my opinion. I think they will. Now, Alex Pacine and Domer have chimed in that this white and gold Tigres shirt that I don't know if they're going to wear today or not. I think it's their new third shirt. If they wear it today, it'd be kind of cool. They say it's better than Atlanta United's gold shirt. It's good. I mean, it's just the design's a little different, but it's really good. It's like their jersey, just white and gold, as opposed to, Atlanta United's doesn't have stripes, for example. It's it's a white jersey. Well, I guess it does have sublimated stripes a little bit. But it's not like reversing the colors like the Tigres one is, where they have the gold patch across the middle, like their yellow shirt with the blue. It looks good. It looks really good. If they wear it today and they win a championship in it, man, it'll be a legendary shirt.
Nick is saying 4-3 Bayern in a game that's absolutely bonkers, and Jarrett says 2-2 Tigres in penalties.
I don't know if Tigres would win penalties if it got to that point. I think the bonkersness, and I know that sounds weird because Tigres is comfortable defending and playing on the counter. I just think Bayern's going to give them opportunities to play on the counter, and I think that'll suit Tigres. I think it's a styles and make fights kind of game, and they both blend for a game that could be bonkers and could have a lot of goals in it because I don't think Bayern, if they give up one, they're not going to all of a sudden be a little more responsible defensively. They're still going to play their game, and Tigres can take advantage of that space. So it could be a fun one. I really hope it is, and I hope Tigres shows well. I hope CONCACAF earns a lot of respect from this.
145 goals in Gignac's career at Tigres. Led the club to 4 Liga MX titles and he has the nickname that they've given Gignac, Mr. Leguia, and he has completely and totally embraced his experience in Mexico. So I think
do you know what that means?
Mr. League, Mr. Big League would be my interpretation. What?
Leguia. You watch Liga MX. What is the Leguia?
What's the Leguia?
The postseason, the playoffs.
Okay. I would have just said Mr. Big League. Okay.
But that's not it. That's the wrong answer. You would have gotten that wrong. So admit you would have gotten that wrong.
No, I just would have gotten it wrong, apparently.
Okay. But
like I said, I didn't know what Leguia was. I was looking at it literally. This is my Latin language upbringing.
It's not Latin.
But I'm saying is I look at something and I'm initially trying to break it down from a Latin point of view. So Leguia, League, Mr. Big League. That's what I was.
No. You're like so wrong. I'm going to try to break this down for you. Liga. What does that mean?
League.
Leguia. Why do you go bigger with Leguia? Why do you think it's bigger?
Oh, I would have thought because Leguia would have been shorter.
Sometimes I really feel like I'm speaking to somebody who's not here. So you said it would be shorter, which is correct, but you called it Mr. Big League. Yeah. Do you understand why I'm confused?
Yeah.
You just contradicted what you said a second ago.
Right. No, I'm agreeing with you that
No. We're done. No, we're done. We're done. I'm going to give you your segment. I was being yelled at to move on because that was going to get out of hand. You're the one who did it.
I'm agreeing with you.
No, never. Stop. Just stop. Just get ready to talk about your thing.
Yeah, all right.
So, as John was trying to learn what a Leguia was, he was also
I saw this.
Yes, he saw this.
I saw this.
What did you see, John?
Well, it's a Gignac-based question. Because of what Gignac has done in a very short period of time with Tigres, my question is, yes, he is an icon, but is he the best ever player in the history of Liga MX?
Well, what do you think?
It's recency bias for me, just because of what you've been able to accomplish in a very short period of time, in basically a 5-year period, to have scored all of these goals and gotten the team to all these titles, and helping them to this appearance in Club World Cup. I would say yes. I don't have any historical background with Liga MX, but I would say that yes, from a recency perspective, that would be why I would say yes for Gignac.
So, again, and I know this is going to go sideways, and I apologize, and I will cut it short if it makes my head hurt. So, the greatest all-time player or striker? What do you want to go with? Pick one.
Let's go striker.
The all-time greatest striker in Liga MX history, you're using recency bias in the all-time greatest conversation.
Just looking at the sheer numbers, I know that you're looking at folks like Funes Mori and Macias and Jonathan Rodriguez.
You're still we're not talking about Jota Macias in the greatest all-time striker conversation. He's got like 3 years of experience. We're talking about the all-time greatest.
All right.
Well, you said the question. So yes, all-time greatest should have zero to do with recency bias, right?
Yeah.
So what? Okay.
Okay.
Again, I'm talking to somebody who's not here. There are a lot of great goal scorers in Mexico who are not recent. That is Gignac in the conversation? Absolutely, because of what he's done, and now he's got league titles. He's got a CONCACAF title. He's got a Club World Cup final. If he wins the Club World Cup, we're having a different conversation. But Zague, legend with Club America, all-time leading scorer with Club America. he's in this. I mean, and I'm not. I can't go back to the black and white days of the Mexican League. I'm not going to be able to get into those conversations as well with you. But Zage, Borghetti scored 252 goals in Mexico. Hermosillo, Carlos Hermosillo, spent some time in MLS, but is a legend at Cruz Azul. Those are three that I'm going to put ahead of Gignac from the last 30 years. Some of it is down to their longevity and just even more production. The things that Gignac would get ahead of them is a little bit more competitive now, a little bit. I mean, you still have Grandes, you still have the big teams. The player I always think of from Mexico who, look, like Borghetti went to Europe. Hermosillo didn't. He went to MLS. Hugo Perez, if he had played in Mexico, we're having a different conversation. If he'd played his whole career there, he went and was the leading scorer in La Liga with Real Madrid. Massive. We're talking all-time greatest Mexican strikers, Hugo Sanchez. But we're talking about Liga MX. Zage. Zage was an incredible player. If you have not had a chance to see Zage, go to the YouTube and look up Zage highlights. When I was starting to really dig into the U.S.-Mexico rivalry and watching games on Univision, Zage immediately jumped out to me. He made his debut in '85. He retired in 2003. Most of his career with Club America, he did play a little bit with Atlante and Necaxa. Just an incredible talent and a little different. He's the one that I think of in this conversation, but if Gignac wins the Club World Cup with Tigres and does something today to help them win it, he will get that recency bias bump. But no, I don't think what he's done over a short period of time recently makes him the greatest all-time Liga MX striker. I don't think that's how the conversation should be defined.
Okay, so then let me present it this way. Where is he in the discussion?
Well, again, but this is the thing. I can't say because I don't have the background on the guys before the mid-'90s. I like Borja from last night on the CONCACAF draw. I don't have the background. I didn't watch him play growing up. I don't have that. I'd have to go back and research that. Then you're comparing eras, and that's difficult.
Right, yeah.
Just from the modern era, and we'll go mid-'90s on. I'm putting Zage up there as the top guy. I'll put Hermosillo right there, probably below it, and I'll put Gignac probably 3. Borghetti's in that mix too. Luis Hernandez is in this mix, but he bounced around. He went to other places. Chicharito left early, so he didn't spend a whole lot of time in Mexico. I'm gonna go with Zage and Hermosillo ahead of Gignac. I don't think even winning the Club World Cup final would put him ahead of Zage. Zage is the gold standard for me in this era. So then
Gignac would be in the discussion of the best ever for trying to figure out how to make that a plural. But so I guess that's where I was going with it. Where in the discussion should he be, especially if he comes up with a win today?
Oh yeah, well, where in the conversation? I mean, he's in the conversation. I just don't think he's automatically the best ever because it's too dismissive of the history of it. And it did come up. Thomas Jewin says, you are now arguing against Joseph as the MLS all-time greatest. I think I've been consistent in saying this. I think he can be. I don't think he is yet. I think he's had the greatest start. I think he's had some of the greatest seasons. But, you're comparing somebody like Wondolowski who has scored a boatload of goals in this league. Does he have the titles? Not as many. Not as much. Not as many as you might think. You're talking about a guy like Landon who has done a whole lot of things in this league and has the trophies to back it up. And that does count for something. I think Joseph is in the top 5 all time. I do. I think Joseph, in what he has done in his time and the rate he has scored at, I'll put him ahead of Bradley Wright Phillips. And I know there's people who would argue that Wright Phillips has more goals, but I think Joseph's 2018 puts him ahead of any of that, where he was the MVP of everything and was vital in winning a league title. he's not there yet with the best because he doesn't have the longevity, and it's hard to say that he's better than some of these other guys who have been in the league for 10, 12, 15 years. We'll be able to judge it a little bit better later on. But if Joseph scores at the rate that he's been scoring at, and he comes back from this injury well, he'll put himself into that conversation on sheer numbers very quickly. And that's where Gignac is. It's a shorter period of time. I think there's others who have done more for a longer period of time, and I do think the longevity does have a huge impact on this.
Gignac, 126 goals and 208 appearances for Tigres since 2015.
Yeah, it's incredibly impressive. Again, if you get a Club World Cup, you've got something that nobody else has got. Nobody on that list would have a Club World Cup. Nobody. And that would give him a different level of conversation here, and he's got league titles to back it up too. But I'm going to go Zage for now, and I think Hermosillo will probably slightly shade him with what he did in Mexico, and we'll see what happens with Gignac, because now I'm wondering where he ends up. Like, he's reportedly out of contract in the summer. Does he go to Brazil, which has been mentioned, with what he did to Palmeiras? Corinthians fans were very, very happy with Gignac, and they're like, come play for us, please, please, please. And he's following them on Instagram, so ooh, maybe he's going to Corinthians. Maybe he comes to MLS. Maybe he goes back to France. Maybe he stays in Monterrey with Tigres. Who knows? It'll be very interesting to see. But today's a big game for his legacy. I can't put him in that best ever in Mexico yet, but if he delivers a big performance today and delivers a Club World Cup title, he could be. He could be.
Yeah, you mentioned France really quickly. Jonathan Johnson, PSG says Neymar's out for around a month with a left adductor injury, so he's out against Barcelona.
Okay. Thank you. That came out of nowhere. Yeah. I was like, what?
No. You mentioned France. I went to France quickly.
All right. Yes, that is not good for PSG. They're going to have to figure these things out. Okay, other news since we went to Europe unexpectedly. We'll hit these really quickly. Antonio Conte and Andrea Agnelli are being investigated for their interactions during the Inter-Juventus semifinal in the Coppa Italia. Media outlet Rai reported that Conte made an insulting gesture toward his former employer Agnelli at halftime, and the Juventus chief retaliated by verbally abusing the Inter coach as the teams left the field. Conte criticized his former club's behavior, but stopped short of pointing any fingers. Conte told media, Juventus should tell the truth. I think the fourth official heard and saw what happened throughout the match. They should be more polite, in my opinion. They need more sportsmanship and respect for those who work. I thought it was funny that Del Piero, Juventus legend, came out and was like, yeah, there should be a lot of pressure on Conte. Yeah, there should be a lot of pressure on him. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good what Inter's doing. They shouldn't have went out here. Yeah. The game is being played in Italy now, and people are after Conte and Juventus and Inter. Yeah, a little bit of friction there. But they're both being investigated for their behavior in that. Luis Suarez is racking up some more money. 16 goals in 17 games, 7 in his last 4. By getting past the 15-goal mark, he's collected an extra €1 million as part of the clauses written into his contract. He gets to 20, he gets another €1 million. Atleti didn't give him a gigantic contract to come this season, but they loaded the incentives, and he is hitting the incentives in a big, big way. In England, Everton, Tottenham, 5-4. Carlo Ancelotti completely tranquilo. Fifth goal, everybody's losing their minds. He's just trying to cool his coffee down. It's a little hot.
That was strong.
Bernard with the goal in the 7th minute of extra time. Harry Kane, Son are trying to carry Spurs through anything right now, and it's just not enough. And has the pressure started to ramp up on one Jose Mourinho? I think it has to. And I'm curious to see if that pressure cooker starts to overflow a little bit at Tottenham, because it normally does when we get to this point. On the Mo Salah side of things in Liverpool, thought it was funny that CEO of Bayern Munich, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, said, I guess out of kind of nowhere, we are not planning to sign Mo Salah at the moment, but it would definitely be an honor to have him with us. In my opinion, Salah is the Messi of Africa, and of course he has the skills to play for the best teams in the world. One, that's almost implying, like, is Liverpool not one of the best teams in the world? Two, you don't normally just randomly talk about somebody you're not planning to sign unless maybe there's something more to it. Okay. Kind of funny. We'll see where it goes. Let's see. One other one. Marseille, a couple from France real quick. Marseille, who we know the situation with Andre Villas-Boas. He is suspended, and basically they're, I guess, trying to get out of paying him, and they might end up having to pay him because he was going to walk, and they should have let him walk, and now there's going to be some kind of tribunal or whatever. Anyway, they have accelerated talks with Jorge Sampaoli of Atletico Mineiro, formerly of the Argentine national team. They are trying to bring him in. Pablo Longoria, the head of football for Marseille, is working on getting Sampaoli to Marseille. He is currently the most serious contender for the role. He's not going to Nantes. Nantes is now looking for a new manager. Remember, they brought Raymond Domenech out of mothballs, who hadn't managed since the 2010 World Cup. Lost his last 5 games with France in 2010. Goes to Nantes. Hasn't won in 8, sorry. 4 losses and 4 draws. He's already fired. Adios.
And I can update your Nantes news. They are announcing the arrival of Antoine Comboire as head coach.
Yeah,
from the
veteran.
Release.
Yeah, veteran. He's been around the block. He's a much safer pick than bringing Domenech out of nothing. Why didn't they just hire him in the first place?
Yeah.
Good job, guys. One other one that's interesting we haven't had a chance to throw out there is from the Netherlands, AD. Of course, when Frank Lampard was let go, they appointed Thomas Tuchel pretty quickly. Chelsea did consider Erik ten Hag from Ajax. Now, Chelsea went with Tuchel. They would have had to get Ten Hag out of his deal at Ajax. Ten Hag has been linked with Borussia Mönchengladbach by Bild. AD in the Netherlands reports that he has not spoken with Borussia Mönchengladbach yet. They have a manager who is being linked to Borussia Dortmund, Marco Rose. Is he going to go to Borussia Dortmund? That's what people have thought. Does the domino effect start to get with Ten Hag going to Mönchengladbach? He could have went to Chelsea. I think they got it right because they needed somebody quickly. Tuchel was available. Tuchel's a good manager. Long term, Ten Hag would have been a better fit because he's not doesn't like the friction as much. He's a little bit easier to work with. But Tuchel in the short term and what they needed at that time has done the job at Chelsea. I'll be curious to see over a couple of years if Chelsea people are like, man, we should have just got Ten Hag at that time. I don't know. I'm okay with what they did. I want to see where Ten Hag ends up because I don't think he's at Ajax next year.
Yeah, no, I think that Tuchel was available. You can bring him in. He's got his CV. You know his success rate. You bring him in. So far, Chelsea has hit the ground running with Tuchel. But yeah, to where what Ten Hag's next step is, it'll be interesting.
What do we have on Twitter?
Question from Nick Brawley.
What's up, Nick?
He says, aside from Miggy and his 2-part. Aside from Miggy and Joseph, who are your top 3 signings our club has made, and who are your 3 least favorite signings? No definition as to what least favorite is.
That could go a lot of directions. So we're taking Almiron and Joseph out of the mix. So I can't use those. So I got to pick 3 that I think are the best signings. Best or favorite? What was the word?
Top 3.
Okay, so I'm going to go with best. Let me think for a second. So, in terms of value, picking Julian Gressel in the draft where you did and what you got out of him for 3 years, yeah, that's huge. Mm-hmm. LGP, a player who was not really a regular at Estudiantes, and was brought here and had 2 best 11 level seasons and one pretty good one. And then I'm going to go with Moreno, and it's a little bit on optimism because I think he is a really good fit. And I think you got him at a really good number as well. So I think Moreno will prove to be more than good for what you got. So I'm going to put him in that list. Least favorite? I mean, it's kind of hard to pick that. Because it depends on how you want to do it. Like, you can go down the road of guys who you thought would be more than they ended up being. I mean, Kenwin Jones was expected to be the starter up top. Yeah. But he just couldn't physically give you that, and Joseph was Joseph. So, I mean, did you need Kenwin Jones in year one? No, ultimately you didn't. It's tough. You're going to miss on some signings. You just are. There's just no way around it. Tyrone Mears was displaced really quickly, and he was coming off of an MLS Cup run with Seattle. Year one, Tyrone Mears lost the job midway through to Anton Walks, who wasn't a typical right back at that time. Nobody saw that one coming. A lot of people expected more out of Chris McCann. I think that's harsh. I think McCann ended up giving you about what was a reasonable expectation. He started when he needed to start, and I thought he was solid. Played a lot of different positions. I didn't expect much more from him at that time. People will say Pitti, and I'll disagree because I think Pitti was one of the most productive attacking players in MLS in his time in MLS. I mean, the numbers back it up in terms of shot created actions, and you get into the XGs and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he was very productive. He didn't always get all of the support, and it wasn't always consistent. But it was not a bust, in my opinion, and you also ended up making a profit on it. Who else would be on that list for me?
For, I guess, top three, and I guess I'm interpreting it a little differently, I would add folks like Larenowitz and Parkhurst, because when you bring in Michael Parkhurst from the beginning, you have the veteran presence in MLS. Same with Jeff. You have him as your first captain. The stabilizers that you need for a young team, you got that in those two guys.
Good call. Absolutely good call.
So those were and I'm with you when it comes to least favorites. I know that a lot of folks, when looked at Tyrone and they looked at Kenwin, and they were anticipating different things. So I agree with you on least favorites. But yeah, as you were breaking down top three, Jeff and Parkey were the two that popped into my head.
Gwen does not like this conversation, by the way. I don't know what's got her set off at this one. Not sure.
Let's see. Also from Nathan this morning, in reference to your earlier conversation that you had with John and Hugh over at 92.9 before the show this morning, he says, John and Hugh, you got to call him Gaffer. And he wanted to know if I was with Nathan on that.
No. Yes, it is a synonym for manager, but it is a very, very English thing that if you're having – the conversation came up. Let me try to backtrack if you missed it. Okay. John asked because MLS's website called Gabriel Heinze the head coach. And I generally say manager, and I think a lot of people generally say manager. And he said, is it one or the other? I said it that you can use them interchangeably. In America, in the United States, we kind of have our own nomenclature to a degree for some of these things. And I think we get too bent out of shape about, no, he's the manager, not the head coach. It's a pitch, not a field. It's a kit, not a uniform. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Stop. Because then the English will say it's a gaffer, and then the Italians will say it's a mister, and we'll bring profe into it, and we know what we're talking about. We don't have to worry about terminology so much. Tranquilo again. But no, I don't use gaffer. I don't feel comfortable saying that. I'm only gotten to where I can rip off Jess was saying Rosette, and that still feels
yes,
weird to me.
True.
I can't say gaffer with a straight face in just a normal conversation. And speaking of Jess, if you have not heard her new podcast, we'll be doing it weekly. It's going to be Tuesdays typically. It's just a conversation with Jess about what she's seeing in the game, what she is seeing in her soccer life. It was a fun one yesterday, so that's on the network. That'll be weekly. Tuesday, late afternoon releases is the plan. If you didn't know, Jess is, I think, 5 weeks after having her first child. so life's a little crazy at the moment. So it's a little hard to have a regular schedule for a radio show or podcast appearance at the moment. So we're being very flexible in getting things done because, I love having her voice in the mix on SDH, and she likes doing these kinds of things as well. It's just the timing of all of it. So the plan is for those to be weekly on Tuesdays. And if you guys have questions for Jess, you know where she is, Jess Talks Footy on Twitter. Throw them in, and we'll get to them in our weekly chat. What else we got on Twitter?
Public service announcement. Bartimus Prime, for the first time ever, the men's national team is going to play Northern Ireland. And so his article on that is up at soccerdownhere.net. So public service announcement
First
for
time
that.
ever against Northern Ireland. I would have never guessed that.
Nope. Tom Russo. The Airborne DJ says the shot of Carlo blowing on his coffee/tea was the best thing ever, and what a sublime little chip pass from Sigurdsson to Bernard on the winner. Up the toffees, hashtag.
Oh, now we're upping the toffees.
OYB.
Now we're upping the toffees. Tom Russo, you've been the one who, when I've said something good about Everton, you've been like, dial that down a little bit, dial that back.
Tranquilo.
No, that's not the right use of it. It's a good try, though.
Just trying.
He's been trying to dial it down when people start praising Everton. Now it's upping the toffees. Okay, I'll try to play along. You guys should believe in yourselves. It's a good team. Y'all have a lot of things in front of you. Everton could be a big surprise this year. I believed in you before the season. Mm-hmm. I still believe in Everton.
I mean, I thought Hamas was a fantastic pickup for Everton coming into the season.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's not the only one, but yes, Everton has a lot in front of them. Believe in the toffees, toffee people. Believe in your toffees.
Ricky Ricardo is in this morning and seeing a story that came out yesterday from Pablo Maurer and The Athletic about Lucho Acosta possibly being in talks to return to MLS. Ricky says, Cincy are really trying to bring life into their new digs, but I have no idea how any of this will work for them, since Cincy is apparently nearing a deal for Acosta.
Yeah, they've got some work to do because DC United still has his rights. I think it came down to the clause 5B.43XY in the MLS roster rules. Something about how if you don't spend the allocation money you get from that kind of transfer. Gwen's trying to explain it to me, and I still don't get it. Something about, like, if you don't use the allocation money that you get from the transfer, you can keep the players' rights within the league. But if you do use it, then you forfeit their rights within the league. They go through the allocation order at this point. Luciano Acosta would not go through the allocation order. If Cincinnati wants him, they're going to have to get his rights from D.C. Now, in this case, if DC's not going to sign him or he doesn't want to go back to DC, and I think that was still at least a somewhat open door, and Cincinnati is able to do a deal with him, I don't think DC is going to hold his contract and his rights ransom, but they're going to get something out of the deal.
Yeah.
So it's different than the allocation order situation where they'd have to deal with Austin. They're going to have to deal with DC directly to get his rights. So it's not as simple as just signing the guy. But he'd be a great addition. I've always liked Luciano Acosta, and for Cincinnati, I mean, I want to see how all the pieces come together first and what it looks like, what their lineup would look like. There's an impression that Jaap Stam is only going to play defense. I don't think that's the case. I think he did that because he came in midseason and he had to because they weren't very good at the time. And Jurgen Locadia hasn't helped him. I mean, he hasn't gotten anything out of the forward position. If Brenner starts to score goals, they're not going to be super defensive. They're going to open up more. So you missed in a big way with Locadia and you missed in a big way with Siem de Jong. If you hit in a big way with Acosta and you hit in a big way with Brenner and some of the other additions, then they're going to open up. I don't think Jaap Stam is going to stifle these guys.
Matt Wagner is in this morning also, and his question is there an available center back currently in MLS that you wouldn't mind seeing transfer to Atlanta United?
That's a good question. Because I'm trying to think of the characteristics as well. Because it's not just like, ooh, I like this young center back. Like, I like Donovan Pines. I mentioned him a ton in D.C. He doesn't fit. He's not the kind of player that would be the right fit here. I mean, a young player that you would get and be able to mold a little bit, Mauricio Pineda. I don't think he's a lefty, so maybe he's not exactly what you're looking for. Nobody Cincinnati, nobody Colorado. Nobody Columbus that I think fits what you want here. Don't think there's anybody in Dallas. There's not anybody that is immediately coming to mind. I know a lot of people have pounded the drum for LGP to come back. He's not what he was at his best here in 2018 anymore. He's still good. Would he fit? I don't know if you could play as high of a line as you want to. I would worry about his pace. So I don't know if he's the right fit. I think you can get a better fit. And it might not be from MLS, as I'm kind of glancing really quickly around the league and looking at some of the center backs and who I think would fit. There's not a ton of immediate options, to be perfectly honest. There's not a ton of guys that I would say, yeah, you could drop them straight in and they would be just fine in the way that Gabriel Heinze wants to play. Because there's not a lot of teams that I think are going to be as committed to building out of the back as what Atlanta is going to be here. You need somebody who is 100% comfortable on the ball in that role. And I don't think there's a good value pickup in the league. Pineda would be the closest one to me because I think he is that kind of midfielder who's converted into a center back who is very good on the ball. He's not going to worry about having to deal with the possession under pressure. But I think you can probably get better value from outside the league.
Taka with a CONCACAF Champions League question.
Okay.
What do you think happens first? MLS beats a Liga MX club in the final, or MLS wins 2 semis and makes the final an all-MLS affair?
The first one first, because I think the second one, it's a little more difficult, and it's going to depend on the draw to a degree. The first one I think will happen soon. The gap's not what it used to be. I mean, even your top teams like your Tigres, your Monterrey, your Club America, the gap between them and your top MLS teams is not huge anymore. There's still a little bit of a gap in some years, but it's not this massive gap. I mean, MLS teams are playing Mexican teams across the whole pretty straight up. So I think that happens pretty quickly. Getting 2 in the final might take a little more time, might take a little bit of the luck of the draw. So I'll go the first one is what happens first. And I think it happens in the next 2-3 years.
Going back to yesterday's show, Kevin from Charlotte is suggesting a new segment.
Oh, no.
Called Betting with John, where there are no losers.
Yeah, that made no sense to me. None. I still don't even know where your head was in trying to figure that out.
Just looking at the margins for the wins.
That doesn't make any sense.
So you won one, and the one that you won was a minus.
That doesn't make
any sense. Somebody won more than one. So I guess in my system that I was looking at yesterday, if you win 1 and you're close to plus 100, it's better than winning 4 and being all over the place and still being on the minus side of things.
But he wasn't on the minus side of things. It didn't make any sense. None of your explanations have made any sense with any of this. And I'm not going to try to figure them out anymore because I did that yesterday and I had a headache for 3 hours. That's what it is, John.
Yes.
It's just
we're officially caught up on the Twitter, sir, with 10 minutes to
go. Coco says Joseph's hair is better than Wando and Landon, therefore he's the better striker.
There you go.
His hair is better. I mean, you can't really argue that.
No.
Don't know if it makes him the better striker just yet. But he does have better hair. That's a definite. Ragamuffin being a hater. Landon did a Wells Fargo commercial for El Tree. He doesn't count. Oh, jeez. I thought it was funny, but, anyway.
I thought so, too.
That really got people riled up. Coco says, well-known MLS insider Jurgen Damm thinks Gignac comes to Atlanta. That's not what he said. And that wouldn't make any sense either because are you going to be able to play Joseph and Gignac? You're not going to pick one. He said that Arthur Blank could go with a blank check and sign him. That's very different. So let's not even start that. Let's not go down that road because he's not going to come and be a backup, I don't think, at this point. So I think he's still producing. I'm really curious to see where he goes, though. Really, really curious to see where he ends up. Let's see what else we got. It is Jason Nix's son Landon's birthday. Happy birthday. 18th
Happy birthday.
Very nice. He's an Atlanta United fan. Very, very good. Like that. Marco Rose is very unpopular with the Mönchengladbach fans, according to Bernd. And we've talked about this at different points about, he does not necessarily fit the Borussia Dortmund template. And it's a little weird that he's the name who keeps coming up. I'm very curious at Mönchengladbach. Are they angry because it looks like he is looking elsewhere for his next job? Is that what they're angry about? Or is it style of play as well? He's a little bit more of a defend and counter than just a team as a gegenpressing team. Countering is a massive thing in Germany, and Fox is showing the highlights from the El Tráfico game from 2018 again. Like, can somebody give them a different package to run during these games where they don't do a halftime show? Please just make a new package for them. I'm tired of seeing this thing. Please, somebody. Anyway, I'm flipping it to Deportes in a minute. That's annoying. Okay. I don't know. I'll be curious to see what happens with Rose and Mönchengladbach and Dortmund and Ten Hag. Does he factor into it? Does Jesse Marsch's name, does that name come up for Dortmund? Because it had been mentioned at one point. He's probably a better stylistic fit. Be curious to see how this goes. We're going to see some dominoes in the coaching circles in Europe for sure in this offseason. The Real Madrid situation with Zidane, who could replace him, Gallardo and River saying, yeah, I'm not necessarily going to stay here for a long time. Little bit of a, hey, come and get me kind of appeal that I thought he had in his press conference. So does he go? Does he end up going to France? Does he end up going to Spain? Barcelona, with a new president, do they end up moving on from Koeman, who is up and down and all over the place? Barcelona lost yesterday in the first leg of the semifinal of the Copa del Rey. Didn't look all that great in losing 2-0. I don't know. The coaching carousel will be spinning really, really fast in the summer. Some takes on the best three signings or top three signings question. We've got Nagbe, Carmona, Gressel. We've got Gressel, Parkhurst, Lorenowitz. We've got Gressel, Robinson, Parkey. Robinson took a while to come good, but I agree with Abby on that one. Nagbe is a good shout from Martha as well. It depends on how you want to define it. It depends on, and the negative one too is the same. Like D. Graham said, Jeffrey O'Toole, and like, was there any expectations of Jeffrey O'Toole? No. Was there any like large outlay to bring him in? No. So is that really the worst? No, I don't think so. I think you have to measure the expectations, and at one point there were expectations on Kenwyne Jones. That he would be the guy, that he was going to be the number 9 for this team and going to be the big goal scorer. And when his knees held up, he did score some goals in 2017 and scored a couple important ones. That was good, but his knees just couldn't hold up, and Joseph became Joseph, and nobody really saw that one coming to that degree either. So it's like you got to find that balance. Nagbe's a good shout. You got absolute good return for him, and you got return on the other side of it too, because you basically got your money back and more, it seems like. And you had him for 2 years, and you won a title. And you won 3 trophies during his time here. So that's a pretty good return on it. Kenwyne did not score in a win. That is a little sad, Ricky. I'm with you. On the worst, Adam John, Castillo, and Mears from Uncle No Pockets. I think Castillo did the job that he was intended to do. I don't think there was any more expectation for him. He was expected to be the backup. He was the backup. I thought he was fine when he was on the field. I think he was about what you would have expected. John, we've talked about it a million times. His role changed with the Joseph injury, and he wasn't suited to be that player. I think if he had been a backup and a target forward when you need to get direct, I think he would have been more like Castillo. Like, he did what he was supposed to do. When he needed to do more, he wasn't able to. And I think the frustration for me with John was just, at times he was trying to do too much. If he had stayed central and been that target and played to his strengths, I think he would have been more effective. On the Leafs side, Kenwyne, Breck Shea, Tyrone Mears. I think Breck was actually good for the team, and then he had the knee injury. So I'll push back on Breck. The knee injury changed it, but no, I thought he was fine, and he did what you needed at left back when you had George Bello go out, because, again, like, the role kind of changed a little bit. I don't think Breck was intended to be a left back as much as he ended up being, but he had to be. Heinemann from Burned on the negative side. I think the jury's still out. If you're going to compare expectations, if you had super high expectations, then yes. I don't think we've gotten there yet. And the one thing I don't think we'll ever know about Emerson is how much COVID affected him. Because, he told us that he tested positive. He wasn't as consistent after that. And I don't know how much of an effect it had on him. I don't know if it affected his lungs. I don't know if it affected his energy. I don't know. And I don't know if we'll ever truly know, to be perfectly honest. There's going to be some players that have a downturn because of contracting COVID-19, and it's going to be hard to quantify at times. Castro for Burned as well. I didn't have huge expectations for Castro. I would have liked more than what we got, and I think he had the opportunities to do more than he did. But I didn't expect him to be a huge, impactful player. Heinemann I expected more impact from. Kenwin I expected more impact from when he was signed. Those two I'll agree with you on. Martha says Heinemann, or want to say Heinemann because he's been the biggest disappointment for money. Overall, he's had some goals, so question mark. We don't know his salary from 2020 because it was never published. There's been reports that it was something, and we don't know what that is. So I do want to wait and see what that number ends up coming in on. Colonel says best is Nagby, worst is Carlton. Carlton had expectations. He did. And he did not fully live up to them. He didn't take that next step that I expected that he would because of his talent. He did. And I'm not getting into the off the field now because there's a lot of questions about that and there's a lot of feelings about that. I'm talking purely on the field with him. He didn't live up to the expectations, and I don't think he got as much out of his talent as he could have. I'm really curious to see what his next step is because I do think he's a talented player. But I think you got to put him in the right system to get things out of him. And I don't know if he's done enough to be worth that investment yet. Like I think you've got to play him as a 10. You've got to give him a role where he is purely a creator. You're not asking him to track back and do a bunch of defensive work. He is purely a creator. That's what you got to get out of him. And is he good enough at that to have a team build around him in that way? He hasn't shown enough yet. He just hasn't. Yes, people have figured out that Gwen has been barking at the thunder. I think she's more been barking at the rain because she thinks the thunder is coming. Because I have not heard any thunder, but
I haven't either.
It started raining here pretty hard, and Gwen knows. It starts raining, she thinks there's going to be thunder, so she doesn't like it. It is not the lawnmower, people. That is true. Let's see what else we got. Lots of talk about things. Mazzano is now trying to start another vicious rumor that I said Messi was coming to Atlanta after the 22 World Cup. I did not say that.
Nathan mentioned that as well.
I did not say that to Nathan or Mazzano or on the radio. I said if Messi comes to MLS, it will be after the 2022 World Cup because everything for him will be about having an opportunity to win that World Cup. I didn't mention Atlanta. John Fricke did. John Fricke said Atlanta. I didn't say Atlanta. Love to see Messi. I mean,
talk to Fricke.
Would love to see Lionel Messi in MLS and see Messi in this league up close, even at that point, because he's still productive now. He's not what he was 10 years ago, but who is? He's still very, very, very good. I want to see what he does after that World Cup because I think he's in Europe through the end of the 22-23 season, which would be that World Cup and then the rest of the year after that. And then I think he could come to MLS. I think he could go to Newell's. I think he could say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going home. I don't like any of you guys anymore because you've all been awful to me with putting my contract info out there and trying to make me into the bad guy and yada, yada, yada. So I don't know. I don't know what he does, but I don't think he makes a dramatic move leaving Europe until after the 2022 World Cup. Ricky Ricardo asks about Christian Pavón, and his name has come up, and his name has come up in Argentina as well. This was reported on TIC last night, and now Golazo Argentino has updated it. Various reports have that the Galaxy have offered in the region of $6 to $7 million for around 60% of the pass for Christian Pavón. It's thought to be quite close. Now, he either today or yesterday had surgery on his ankle. He's going to be out for a couple of months. That's fine with the MLS lineup. I mean, he'll have to come back in and get fit, but okay, you can deal with that. Originally, Boca was saying, according to reports, $10 million for the whole pass. Now, if they've brought it down to 6 to 7 for 60%, maybe they get it done for that. He does allegedly he does not want to stay at Boca because he doesn't expect he's going to be a major part of the team. He's ready to go. Does he go back to L.A., where he did well? He was comfortable. He was happy. Let's see, the surgery, it's next week now is what they're saying, for fibrosis in both ankles, 2 months of recovery. But Martin Arevalo has reported that negotiation has kicked back up with Boca, with the Galaxy, new offer. The player has already told Russo he wants to leave. He does not want to play in Argentina. So maybe Pavone does go back to the Galaxy. It's starting to get more smoke to it.
You'd mentioned on the show, I think it was either a day or so back, about Vancouver starting their season in Salt Lake.
You mentioned that, actually.
Yesterday, or late last night, the Toronto Sun, Steve Buffrey caught up with Toronto FC President Bill Manning, and Manning is thinking along the same lines. Quote, what we're doing now is we're actually planning to be out of market to start the MLS season, but with the ability to pivot back to market at BMO as soon as the officials allow us to do so.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to start elsewhere, but they're not going to put a hard date on it just because we don't know how things are going to go. I mean, if the vaccines speed up, and Canada's had some problems with the vaccines as well, if everything speeds up and they can get back in July, where they thought they might not be able to get back in until September, they're going to get back in July. They're going to get back in as fast as they can. So hopefully things accelerate and things get closer to normal quickly. We just don't know. But they're going to have to start elsewhere. There's no way around it. And Toronto and Montreal are going to have to figure that out too.
Yeah, Manning also said we're looking at a bunch of different options. Weather comes into play now as well, especially if we advance in the Canadian Championship. We want to make sure that we're in a good climate and field. So we're looking at some options for the South, meaning the United States, but we're also looking at the Northeast as well.
Well, looking at the Southern United States.
Yeah.
And looking at some options in the Northeastern United States. But if they're looking at weather, they're going to come to the Southern United States. That makes more sense.
He says every agreement that we're looking at has a provision that we can literally, within 48 hours' notice, vacate and head back to Toronto, looking at different options right now. South of the border, probably within the next week, finalize which stadium and which location we're going to be at.
Makes sense. Yeah, they're going to want to have an exit ability really quickly. Other stuff from the Twitch pitch. Bernd wants to know how to send questions for Jessica's podcast. I will create a channel on Discord for it, Bernd. That's a good idea. Jess is on the Discord as well. She is new to the Discord. I don't think she has Discorded and doesn't know the Discord. But she got in pretty fast. I think she got in faster than John did. She figured it out quicker.
No doubt. And it was good to be on the Discord last night during the draw and
fun.
Talk to the folks last night. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's always fun to do that stuff. We will have a Q&A on the Discord tonight at 7 o'clock. It's basically like an AMA. It becomes pretty entertaining from time to time. So join us at 7 on the Discord for that. If you're a subscriber on Twitch, if you're a subscriber on Patreon, we have some new subscribers on both, and thank you. If you guys are not linked into the Discord yet, please send me a message so I can get you in. But Q&A tonight at 7 o'clock on the Discord. Everybody's asking about the whiteboard. I didn't know the whiteboard had become such a big deal.
Oh, yeah. It's a part of the fabric of
I decided to mix it up
show
and
with
try
the rundown
something
behind you.
I wanted to try something different because half the time John would take us off on a tangent. We didn't follow the rundown anyway. So, I mean, I didn't know it was that big of a deal.
I thought it was an all-inclusive element that it didn't have a specific order to it. I just saw topics. And
you just skipped things. Like there'd be a topic on there that would stay for like 3 days because we never got to it. If you guys are demanding the whiteboard back, then I will take it under advisement. How about that?
It's also a sponsorable element, too.
Yeah, if somebody wants to sponsor the whiteboard, please do so. You can sponsor whatever you want if you want to do that. Go for it. Sam Williamson says we should rob Lucho from Cincinnati, one of my favorite to play in MLS. I like Luciano Acosta a lot. I don't think he would fit what you're looking for here. I don't think he is the right kind of fit. He could be in Cincinnati, though. I love him as a player. I love him on the dribble. Such a fun player to watch. Jason Nick says he'd take Walker Zimmerman. Zimmerman's technical. I mean, he's good on the ball. I don't. He's got the speed. You're not going to get him, and you'd have to pay so much to get him because Nashville paid so much. So that kind of ruled him out for me as well. But I don't know if he's quite good enough on the ball in those pressure situations. I think he's good, but I don't know if he's quite to that level that you're looking for. It's an interesting shout. You're just not going to be able to pull it off because you'd have to overpay to get him. So that's why it wouldn't make sense. Uncle said, any idea why they haven't announced any of the recently acquired players? I don't know, actually. I'm wondering if the CBA stuff kind of put a halt to it. I wonder if they wanted to line things up with whenever preseason was going to start. I don't know the details on that. But from what we know, because they've both said it to media in Argentina, Sosa and Ibarra are both done deals, and they are coming to Atlanta, and they'll be joining Atlanta United. Just not officially announced yet, and I don't know the holdup, to be honest, so I'm not sure. Let's see. D. Graham said Austin Trusty fell off huge going to Colorado from Philly. He did. Trusty was expected to be Mark McKenzie before Mark McKenzie, and it just hasn't been there. It just hasn't been that. Good, a good center back in the league, but yeah, another one on the ball. It's like, do I want him in that situation? I think you can get better elsewhere. And I think ultimately Atlanta will look elsewhere for another center back. And this is assuming Fernando Meza does go on loan to San Lorenzo, and you're going to need another starting level center back at that point, unless you feel that Anton Walkes is that player. I don't. I think you like having Walkes in that utility role because you know that if you start with Meza or new center back here, Robinson, and then Bello and Lennon on the outsides, you know that if you have an injury, Anton Walkes could come in and play any of the four spots in the back line. It's good to have a player like that in your 18. You don't want to lock him into one of those positions because I don't know if he's a regular starter in one of those positions yet, but he's a guy who can give you 20 starts across 4 different positions if needed. And you need those kinds of players. I don't know if Anton wants more than that in his career. I don't know if he feels like he's at that point and he could go elsewhere and get more time. I think it's a good spot to be in at a good team, and he can come in and play at any of those spots. And if he's in a good run of form, you keep playing him. I trust Walkes. I think he can do the things that this team will need defensively, but I think you can get better as a starter at center back, and I think that's what they'll look to do. Sam Williamson is yelling for Carlos Salcedo, and I think he is actually being linked to the Houston Dynamo. And I'll be on Soccer Matters in the Houston market with Glenn Davis tonight. It is 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. I'm talking Atlanta United. But if you're looking to get to know the Houston, Dallas, Austin situations, just looking to hear more about soccer in general, Glenn's show is excellent on local Houston radio. Highly recommended. You can listen online, and I'll be on at 9 o'clock tonight. And maybe I'll ask him about Salcedo and where that's looking like. I kind of like the idea. I think he'll do well with Houston. I think they need a player like that. Abby reminds us about Trivia Night, February 23rd, yes. And we are trying to get people to invite new folks to the Trivia Night, benefiting soccer in the streets. And we have a little bit of this. This month's special guest for our Soccer in the Streets Trivia Night is Jillian Sakovitz.
All right.
And she will be doing a couple rounds of trivia. I don't know what categories Jillian is going to pick yet. I hope Jillian's kind of rough on you guys. I hope she comes up with some really tricky trivia questions. I'm looking forward to Jillian hanging out on trivia, and I'm looking forward to seeing what questions she comes up with. That's always the fun element with it. Andy Bunker was a pleasant surprise with his U.S. women's national team round that had some toughies in there. So Jillian will be joining us February 23rd to help us raise money for Soccer in the Streets. You donate what you can afford to donate. There is not a price point on it. You guys have been extremely generous helping Soccer in the Streets over the last year with this, trying to make up a little bit for some of the events that they're not able to do fundraisers with right now. So we're doing it again, February 23rd. Very easy to participate on Zoom using the Kahoot app as well to answer your questions. It's multiple choice. John did pretty well. He tried to sandbag it and said he wasn't going to do very well. He did pretty well. He should be playing on the 23rd.
Andy's category absolutely destroyed me last time out. Absolutely destroyed me.
So make sure you're following at Soccer Streets for all the deets on that. But Jillian will be our guest host on the 23rd.
Nice.
Okay. I think, y'all have been very busy on the Twitch pitch, which is always fun, and it is always a place where you can have your own conversations and not have to worry about what nonsense we are spouting at the time.
And have you had to deal with any bots today?
I've not seen any bots. I think the people have put up a no bot zone on the Twitch pitch,
Sweet.
and
Awesome.
we're not seeing as many of them. I have not seen any in the last couple of days. So it's good stuff. Abby says the key on trivia is not to come in last. That's absolutely true. You don't want to be that person. And if you are, I don't look, so I don't know who it is. So just don't tell us. It's okay. I only know who the top 3 is. Well, I know the top 5 is going into it because it'll show the top 5. I'm not like scrolling back to say, oh, look at who's in last.
Unless it's me.
Oh, I would if you were in last. Absolutely, I would point and laugh and probably stop the contest for 5 minutes.
After Andy's category last time out, I was really hurting. I mean, I was down toward the bottom, and I was waiting. For the responses on that one.
You were, that was a little tough.
Waiting.
Mm-hmm. It's okay. It happens sometimes. It's all good. Believe that is pretty much everything. No updates on Eric Remedi and a move to San Jose or to Argentina. No updates on Fernando Meza that I have seen. We talked just a little bit at the top of the show about the Venezuelan winger who has been linked to Atlanta United. I think it sounds more like a twos kind of either signing or at least playing time early on with Mateos. I think it's more likely he spends a lot of time with Atlanta United too, coming from Zamora in Venezuela. 19 years old, I think same representation as Joseph Martinez. I think it's Seca Sports. So be on the lookout for any news from those rumors, and we'll keep you posted. Other stuff around the league, in case you missed it, season pushed back to April 17th, 2 weeks back. The league can now set all their dates. So preseason training camp, when it starts for the CONCACAF teams. New schedule will be confirmed soon. National TV schedule confirmed soon. All those elements are out there. The teams will use charter flights early on exclusively. They will back off of charter flights when they are able to, but they're going to do more charter flights in the CBA than they did before. I don't know what those numbers are, but Garber talked about it. Like, time being, you have to do the charter flights out of safety. You have to. There's no way around it. Jason Nick says, remember when I said that I didn't see a lot of team turnover this season? Yeah, I didn't see as much. I really didn't. I got it wrong. My bad. I will admit that. It happens. It's not going to be the last time, trust me, because it's an unpredictable game. It's an unpredictable element. The market's been a little bit different too. If you could have gotten Hector David Martinez for $3.5 million, you clear the room. And if you can get somebody else at that level for that kind of price, you clear the room and you make it work. Silly. It can be that way. It can absolutely be that way. Five Stripe Sunner says, don't take Gurr's time with the twos. I wouldn't see the winger, and look, I'm not following the Venezuelan league, so I'm not going to make something up for you. But by all accounts, he is a winger. Gurr would be a right back, so they would actually be maybe good together on that right side as opposed to taking time. I wouldn't see that happening.
Right now, looks like 55th minute, Al-Akhli and Palmeiras are scoreless. So if you're so inclined to head over to FS2 or Fox Deportes, Club World Cup third place match is scoreless.
Please, Palmeiras, lose badly. I don't like you guys after your abomination of a Libertadores final that you made me watch.
That was so bad.
Final MLS news of the day. You have a new young signing with the New York Red Bulls, 14 years old, about to be 15, Bento Estrella. Scored 3 times in 14 DA matches for Red Bulls, like early teams. He's played for the U19s at 14. I'm assuming he's one that they see as a possible player to move into the European clubs eventually, and that's why you get him under contract now. So I don't expect to see him in MLS anytime soon. But Red Bulls too, yeah, I think we'll see him in USL Championship this season. Dallas has sent Brandon Cervania, a promising young central midfielder, to Austria, joining SKN St. Pölten until the end of the Austrian Bundesliga season. They're in 8th out of 12 in the Austrian Bundesliga. Cervania's a good player. I like him. He's originally from the Birmingham area as well. His brother plays for Birmingham Legion, or has. He could break through, and this is a good little taste for him going over to Europe and getting an opportunity. We'll see if he jumps straight into the team. And we mentioned the Tomas Pochettino move to Austin FC, $2.5 million, incredible deal there. Austin also signed their number 11 pick in the Super Draft, Freddie Kleeman, a center back who should be a depth piece this year, but will help build that depth, because that's the element I have a question about with Austin, as you do with most new teams. Like the front 11, maybe 12, 13 looks pretty good, but if you have injuries, if you have poor form, who can step in? That's always the hardest element. So we'll see what they do. All right, that's it for today. Not quite a 3-hour show. We're edging in that direction. We'll have a format pretty soon, and we're going there because you guys are crazy and want to hear us ramble on and talk trash and all kinds of things, and promote tranquilo, because that's what we try to do around here. Promote tranquilo. Except when John drives me insane with a bookie thing that still I don't even know where the logic was, but we're not going to talk about it. Tonight, Q&A on the Discord. If you're a basketball fan, we have the No Swag Shop today on 92.9's Facebook page at 3 o'clock. We're going to try to figure out what happened to the Hawks at the end of that game last night.
Woo.
And in
Trae
the
Young
second
was
half.
hot.
Well, yeah, he got fouled, and that was crap. But we'll talk about all of that. We'll see if the final 2 minutes report is out, because I know Mike's always looking forward to those. But that's me and Andy Bunker and Mike Conti talking Hawks for an hour on 92.9's Facebook page. So that's 3 o'clock. Q&A on the Discord at 7 o'clock. That is basically AMA style. Whatever you guys want to talk about, we'll talk about. And we'll be back tomorrow morning. And we will be talking about Tigres and Bayern Munich, which kicks off at 1 o'clock. Huge opportunity for CONCACAF, huge opportunity for Liga MX, huge opportunity for Tigres. Vamos, Tigres. Sorry, Bayern Munich fans. I am pulling for Tigres. Full bore here. Let's go Tigres. Talk to you tomorrow. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.